All right, Cody, stop. Stop the music. My friends, we're dealing with a very, very, very grave situation here. It's Monday. I'm Howard Riell. This is Riell Truth, but no time for music. A great American died yesterday, and there are those who are suggesting he was murdered. Now, I do not know whether Justice Scalia was murdered or not. What I do know is this. I know the Washington Post is not the National Enquirer. They're a pretty steady newspaper. Yes, they lean liberal, but so does everybody else. But when they report something, they've got a good reason to report it, and they are not out there selling conspiracy theories. So when I get on the internet and I find a headline from the Washington Post that says, "The death of Antonin Scalia, chaos, confusion, and conflicting reports," I'm wondering what's going on. A 79-year-old man dies in his sleep, and we've got chaos, confusion, and conflicting reports. Something doesn't add up, and that's why I wanted to start right up front with this today. Here's the piece. Here's some of the piece from the Washington Post. The dateline, of course, is from Marfa, Texas, and I'm quoting. In the cloistered chambers of the Supreme Court, Justice Antonin Scalia's days were highly regulated and predictable. He met with clerks, wrote opinions, and appeared for arguments in the august courtroom on a schedule set months in advance. Yet, as details of Scalia's sudden death trickled in Sunday, it appeared that the hours afterward were anything but orderly. The man known for his elegant legal opinions and profound intellect was found dead in his room at a hunting resort by the resort's owner, who grew worried when Scalia didn't appear at breakfast Saturday morning. It then took hours for authorities in remote West Texas to find the Justice of the Peace, officials said Sunday. When they did, Presidio County Judge Cinderella Guevara pronounced Scalia dead of natural causes without seeing the body, which is permissible under Texas law, and without ordering an autopsy. As official Washington tried to process what his demise means for politics and the law, some details of Scalia's final hours remained opaque. As late as Sunday afternoon, for example, there were conflicting reports about whether an autopsy should have been performed. A manager at the El Paso funeral home where Scalia's body was taken said his family made it clear they did not want one. One or two other officials who were called but couldn't get to Scalia's body in time said she would have made a different decision on the autopsy. "If it had been me, I would want to know," said Juanita Bishop, a justice of the peace in Presidio, in an interview Sunday in the chaotic hours after Scalia's death at the Cibolo Creek Ranch, a luxury compound less than an hour from the Mexican border and about 40 miles south of Marfa. Meanwhile, Guevara acknowledged she pronounced Scalia dead by phone without seeing his body. Instead, she spoke to law enforcement officials at the scene who assured her, quote, there were no signs of foul play, unquote, and Scalia's physician in Washington, who said that the 79-year-old justice suffered from a host of chronic conditions. He was having health issues, Guevara said, adding she's awaiting a statement from Scalia's doctors that will be added to his death certificate when it's issued later this week. Guevara also rebutted a report by a Dallas TV station that quoted her as saying Scalia had died of, quote, myocardial infarction. In an interview with the Washington Post, she said she meant only that his heart had stopped. It wasn't a heart attack, Guevara said. He died of natural causes. Stop! My friends, Texas has a particularly bad name when it comes to famous political figures dying under what to a casual observer will appear like chaotic circumstances. Anybody ever hear of JFK in Dallas, Texas? Related item from mysanantonio.com. Quote, he was seated near me and I had a chance to observe him. He was very entertaining, but about 9 p.m. he said, it's been a long day and a long week. I want to get some sleep. Recalled Houston businessman John Poindexter, who owns the 30,000-acre luxury ranch. When Poindexter tried to awaken Scalia at 8:30 the next morning, the judge's door was locked and he did not answer. 3 hours later, Poindexter returned after an outing with a friend of Scalia who had come from Washington with him. We discovered the judge in bed, a pillow over his head. His bedclothes were unwrinkled, said Poindexter. My friends, a pillow over his head? Item from InfoWars, the seemingly quick conclusion that Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia died of natural causes this weekend is prompting calls for an autopsy and toxicological reports by activists across social media platforms. William Geen, president of the Americans for Legal Immigration Political Action Committee, noted the media's rush to proclaim Scalia's death in a rented room in a resort in Texas as either natural causes or a heart attack within hours of the discovery of the body. Anytime a head of state, member of Congress, or the most conservative member of the U.S. Supreme Court is found dead, an extensive autopsy and toxicology examination should be both immediate and mandatory, said Geen. The horrid reaction and comments about his death expressed by many liberals online illustrate that Scalia was hated by many people. His death hands the power of the Supreme Court to the modern left for the first time in American history. The court can now vote, even without a replacement of Scalia, to radically change the United States of America. Scalia's death means the Supreme Court is now very likely to rubber stamp Obama's unconstitutional amnesty orders, tear down Republican-drawn districts in many states, including North Carolina, and take deep left turns on abortion, gun rights, or anything the liberals have ever dreamed of. Scalia was a solid vote against Obama's immigration orders to be decided by April of this year. We do not contend there's a conspiracy. We contend that there should be no doubts. And the way authorities and the media are rushing conclusions will leave major doubts and legitimate concerns about a death that could lead to a radical political transformation of America to the left. The body arrived in Texas funeral home a day after he died on a hunting trip. Blah, 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 blah. Item from WorldNet Daily, since Justice Antonin Scalia was found dead in his resort hotel room in Cibolo Creek Ranch on Saturday, questions have been flying about the immediate declaration of natural causes as the means of death. According to the ranch owner, Scalia was described as animated and engaged during Friday night dinner. He was one of 36 invitees to an event unrelated to law or politics. Yet just hours later, after missing both breakfast and lunch, he was found dead of apparent natural causes. Later, media outlets reported he'd suffered a heart attack. We discovered the pillow over the head. His hands were sort of almost folded on top of the sheets, Poindexter told the New York Times. The sheets weren't rumpled at all. My friends, when we come back, we're going to talk more about this and the vast implications for the United States of America and the world. This is Riell Truth. It's Monday. We'll be right back.
I'm Joe Jacobs, CEO of the Patriot Trading, and I would like to encourage everyone to make sure they are prepared financially. The Federal Reserve continues to destroy the value of the dollar. Since the closing of the gold window in 1971, the Federal Reserve has led the way in the explosion of debt and the devaluing of your money. They openly say that they need 2% inflation, which simply means they hope to devalue your money, and they want to do this every single year, year after year. I know it's hard to understand, but the Federal Reserve believes in prosperity through debt and growth via the devaluation of your future. To learn more about how to protect yourself, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 800-951-0592 and protect yourself against the devaluing of your money.
The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
back to Riell Truth. Howard Riell. This comes from Paul Joseph Watson at InfoWars. It's a short video. The headline, Why Some People Think Scalia Was Murdered. We'll listen to it and then we'll come back and discuss. Here we go.
Anytime an extremely prominent person in the sphere of politics or law dies in unclear circumstances, the question needs to be asked. Was it foul play? The circumstances behind the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia remain unclear. Does that mean he was murdered as part of a devious conspiracy by the Democrats to tip the balance in the Supreme Court before Obama leaves office? No. Scalia was a 79-year-old man with admitted health problems, and the likeliest explanation is that he died of natural causes. But it doesn't take a wild conspiracy theorist to understand why people have questions. Why did law enforcement personnel tell Presidio County Judge Cinderella Guevara that there was no evidence of foul play when Scalia was found alone in his room with a pillow over his head? Was the immediate clampdown on any suggestion of foul play an attempt to prevent an autopsy from taking place? Why did Guevara initially tell the media that Scalia had died of a heart attack before hastily changing her mind and saying he died of natural causes? Why did Guevara pronounce that Scalia had died of natural causes without having actually seen the body? Why is no autopsy taking place despite Guevara's confusion as to how Scalia died, a decision disputed by other officials? Why was it necessary for no less than 20 police officers to escort Scalia's dead body to the Sunset Funeral Home in El Paso? Why was Scalia's body quickly embalmed, a process that would destroy toxicology evidence? Why did Scalia reportedly refuse to be provided with security detail, despite the fact that other Supreme Court justices had received death threats? Are reports true that Barack Obama was told about Scalia's death hours before a public announcement was made? If so, who told him? Was it John Poindexter, the Texas businessman and Democratic Party donor, who owned Cibolo Creek Ranch and was reportedly one of the first to learn of Scalia's death? And why does any of this matter? Well, if Obama is able to get his choice of Supreme Court justice confirmed to replace Scalia, America could be radically transformed. Scalia was a strict constitutionalist who consistently voted to protect free speech, freedom of religion, and the individual right to bear arms. All of those liberties and more are now under threat if Obama is able to appoint a leftist activist judge before he leaves the White House. Given this monumental motive and the unclear circumstances surrounding Scalia's death, the emergence of conspiracy theories is hardly a surprise.
Exactly right. My friends, let's take it step by step. First of all, Scalia was hated by the left. He's a solid conservative voice on the court. And there are major issues coming up in the near future: immigration, abortion, affirmative action, same-sex marriage, and more. Obama's only got months to go before he leaves office. If the liberals are to get another liberal judge on the bench, they need to do it before he leaves office, which means now rather than later. A liberal justice added to the court to replace Scalia will affect American law for decades, assuming that there is an America decades from now. Scalia was at a deserted resort. Lots of privacy, lots of monkey business could go on. No one would see it. Because he was 79 and in ill health, no one would question his death. Pillow over the head? I have absolutely no way of understanding that. Texas is a place where assassinations, high-profile assassinations, have taken place before. Different causes given for death. The coroner calling in the cause of death without having seen the body. No security around Scalia. No autopsy, but instead, as you heard in the video, he was quickly embalmed, which would destroy any evidence of wrongdoing. On top of all that is the fact that, as we've seen innumerable times over the decades, liberals will stop at nothing and I'm underscoring the word nothing, to push forward their liberal agenda up to and including murder. And so, I will repeat, I don't know if Justice Scalia was murdered or not, but I do know there's nothing wrong with asking the question given all those reasons for suspecting something may have been wrong. I hope there will be a full investigation, frankly, between you and me. I'm not hopeful that there will be one. If there is one, I'm not hopeful that it will be any more objective and fair than the 9/11 Commission or the JFK Commission. I think this stinks. I think the Republicans should absolutely refuse to okay any Supreme Court replacement that Obama puts forward. Let him leave office, if he will, and let the next president pick the next Supreme Court justice, because there are going to be other justices retiring in the next few years, and this is America's possibly last hope to stock the Supreme Court with strong conservatives, with constitutionalists, with originalists, and if we don't do that, we're dead. Now, let's move on. I've had my say. Item from Salon.com, the Democratic Party's superdelegate system has come under attack this presidential election as critics blast it as undemocratic. There are hundreds of superdelegates, unelected party elites, who can sway the primary election, undermining the candidate democratically chosen by the party's mass base. Bernie Sanders won the primary election in New Hampshire by a landslide in early February, with 60% of votes to Hillary Clinton's 38%. Sanders won every demographic group, excluding rich voters and those aged 65 and older. Excuse me. Yet, although Clinton drastically lost, she ended up leaving with an equal number of delegates. This is because of the superdelegate system. Sanders won 15 delegates in the primary, Clinton won just 9, but New Hampshire has 8 superdelegates, also known as unpledged delegates, and 6 of these unelected party elites pledged support for Clinton. Despite the fact that Sanders had drastically more votes, therefore both candidates got an equal number of total delegates. Because of this system, the Washington Post points out, Sanders could technically win the primary election, earning a majority of the 1,670 delegates determined by actual voting, but still lose the Democratic Party's nomination if Clinton gets more of the party's 712 unelected, unpledged delegates. Critics have begun to ask why this undemocratic system exists. CNN's Jake Tapper posed precisely this question to Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, an ally of Hillary Clinton who co-chaired her former presidential campaign. In the February 11th interview, she responded with shockingly blunt honesty, quote, "What do you tell voters who are new to the process who say this makes them feel like it's all rigged?" Tapper asked the DNC chair. Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they're running against grassroots activists, Wasserman Schultz calmly explained. Tapper did not press her on her response. "I'm not sure that answer would satisfy an anxious young voter, but let's move on," he said, and dropped the issue just when it was getting hot. Stop! 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 This interview between Jake Tapper, major media, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, major politics, tells you why America's dying. She's a politician, and she's saying, again with surprising honesty, we don't want the average person picking our candidates, we want to do it. So in other words, screw Americans, the power elite will make the major decisions. Jake Tapper has no follow-up question. He's fine with that. He's going to let it go because he's also a whore who's owned, just like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Both owned. Both part of the power machinery. As for Americans, and I know what you're thinking, Democratic voters haven't got much on the ball anyway. Who cares what they have to say? And you're right. But we still have a representative Republican. People still get a chance to vote, low IQ though they may have. So we've got the political class taking the American public out of the equation, and we got the supposed watchdog media, really a lapdog media, doing nothing about it, giving it a pass, just like Hillary Clinton has gotten a pass every single day since she announced her candidacy. My friends, the fix is in. The fix is in and the sky is falling. There's no better spin to put on it. The fix is in. The Democratic machine isn't asking who you want to be president. They're telling you Hillary Clinton is going to be your Democratic choice for president. If you don't like it, too bad, says Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, why anyone with an IQ over 40 would vote for Hillary Clinton is beyond me to begin with. But just the venality of the Democratic Party, and by the way, the Republican Party is not much better. We've got two parties in America that are really one. They are the big government party. I don't trust either of them. That's why we can't have someone become president who's part of that two-party machine. Do you get that? It stinks. Related item from WorldNet Daily. Despite being the victim of a popular vote landslide in the New Hampshire primary on Tuesday, Hillary Clinton is actually a winner when it comes to the number of delegates earned. The former Secretary of State is leaving the Granite State with at least 2 more delegates than Senator Bernie Sanders, even though Sanders won by a margin of 60 to 38% of votes. How is this possible? New Hampshire not only has 24 pledged delegates, which are awarded based on the results of the popular vote, it also has 8 superdelegates, which are free to lend their support to the candidate of their choice, irrespective of the vote. The Stop Hillary campaign is on fire. Though Mrs. Clinton had only 9 pledged delegates through the voting process, she has an additional 6 superdelegates as of Wednesday morning, giving her a total of 15. Sanders has 13, all of which he won through the popular vote. 2 superdelegates are uncommitted at this point, so even though the results appear to be a massive win for Sanders, the delegate count where it matters tells a different story. Radio host Rush Limbaugh commented on the absurdity of the Democratic Party process, saying, quote, "What kind of system is that? You go in and you get skunked, you get schlonged, you get landslided out by 22 points, and you leave the state with 2 more delegates than Bernie? Bernie's always talking about how the system's rigged, and that system's rigged. The economy is rigged, Wall Street's rigged. Wait till he finds out about how New Hampshire was rigged." Item from truthinmedia.com. Democratic National Committee Chair and Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz explained the motive behind the Democratic Party's appointment of unpledged delegates, also called superdelegates. This piece just goes over here. Wasserman Schultz says the following. Let me make sure I can clarify exactly what was available during the primaries in Iowa and New Hampshire. The unpledged delegates are a separate category. The only thing available on the ballot in the primary and the caucus is the pledged delegates, those that are tied to the candidate they're pledged to support, and they receive a proportional number of delegates going into our convention. Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they're running against grassroots activists. We are, as a Democratic Party, really highlight and emphasize inclusiveness and diversity at our convention, and so we want to give every opportunity to grassroots activists and diverse committed Democrats to be able to participate and attend and be a delegate at the convention. And so we separate out those unpledged delegates to make sure there isn't competition between them. Stop! My friends, she's good. She's good. Debbie Wasserman Schultz can say 2 diametrically opposed things at the same time. Little wonder that she went into politics. Here's the English version. Democratic voters are idiots, and they're not capable of picking the proper candidate, so the Democratic Party will pick the proper candidate. Well, my friends, the Democratic Party hasn't tripped over the proper candidate yet, nor are they likely to. And the fact that they are sidestepping the democratic process is not just obscene. In my opinion, it's criminal. We'll take a break. We will be back.
We all know that our government is
Meanwhile, let's go down to Aiken, South Carolina. Ted Cruz, who would like to be our next president of the United States, joins us live. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Great to have you. Meanwhile, let's...
From complete power independence to backup power for the short term, our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom-tailored capabilities as modest as emergency lighting all the way to commercial-scale power. Great Plains Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom-designed system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com. Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver is not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo's.
Welcome back to Riell Truth. Howard Riell here on this regrettable Monday in the aftermath of the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. Now, I'm about to make a prediction. And this has nothing to do with my well-known power of prophecy. This is just common sense. If Barack Obama gets to pick a replacement for Justice Scalia, America will be trashed, destroyed. All hope is lost. If he stacks the deck on behalf of liberal, make up any law you feel like that particular day justices. Here's a report from Fox News Today. I watched it as it happened. Ted Cruz running for president. Good man. I like Cruz. And they're about to ask him about the process of selecting the next judge. And he puts it right on the line, which is why I like him. He says he will not permit Barack Obama in his last year as president to select a Chief Justice for the Supreme Court. It's very important that you listen to this. Here we go.
Meanwhile, let's go down to Aiken, South Carolina. Ted Cruz, who would like to be our next president of the United States, joins us live. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Great to have you. I know over the weekend you said that you would absolutely filibuster the president's nominee to replace Justice Scalia. Why would you do that? Explain it to our audience.
Well, listen, Justice Scalia's passing really underscores the stakes of what this election are all about. The Supreme Court is exquisitely balanced. Justice Scalia was a lion on the court. He was someone I've known for 20 years. He spent decades on the court defending the Constitution. And for the last 80 years, the Senate has not confirmed any nominee nominated during an election year. And we should not do so this time either. This nomination
could dramatically alter the balance of power on the U.S. Supreme Court. And we have an election going on right now. I believe we should make the 2016 election a referendum on the Supreme Court. And I got to tell you, I cannot wait to stand on that debate stage with Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders and make the case to the American people, because one more liberal justice and we will see our fundamental rights taken away. We will see the court mandating unlimited abortion on demand. We will see the court effectively erasing the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms from the Constitution, and we would see the court dramatically undermining the religious liberty of Americans all across this country. I don't think the American people want that, but we've got an election coming up to decide that.
And Senator, I know that's how you feel, but how would you feel if it was a Republican president and a minority Democratic Senate? Would you be on the other side of the issue?
Well, that was actually the position of the Democrats. Chuck Schumer had that position when it was a Republican president. Actually, he said the last 18 months of George W. Bush's tenure, they shouldn't confirm any Supreme Court justices. So that's been what the Democrats do. We have an election. This election is coming up in November, just a few months from now. This election will decide it. And you know, I called for the Senate not to take up this confirmation. I was very pleased to see Republican leadership following what I called for and saying we're not going to take it up. That's the right thing to do, and it's the respect that the American people are owed. You know, when it comes to what is at stake in this election, very little compares to preserving our constitutional rights, our religious liberty, our Second Amendment. And I'll tell you, I think that was one of the things in the debate we had this weekend that really has changed the dynamic of the Republican presidential race, is that people are realizing we need to nominate someone who we can trust to pick strong, principled constitutionalists to the court, because if we don't do it, we'll lose our basic rights.
Senator Cruz, and your principles have actually been attacked by some of the other GOP candidates, Senator Marco Rubio in particular. I want to get your response to this exchange during the debate. Listen.
We've got a soundbite. Marco went on Univision in Spanish and said he would not rescind President Obama's illegal executive amnesty on his first day in office. I have promised to rescind every single illegal executive action, including that one.
I don't know how he knows what I said on Univision, because he doesn't speak Spanish. And second of all, the other point that I would make...
Si quieres, díselo ahora mismo, díselo ahora. En español, si quieres.
There you went and showed that you do know how to speak Spanish, but he also on Fox News Sunday, Senator Rubio said he lied about his position on marriage and Planned Parenthood, and we all saw what he did to Dr. Ben Carson. Your response?
Well, listen, you know, I mean, it really is an amazing thing that both Marco Rubio and Donald Trump, whenever anyone points to their actual record, they have this strange practice of just screaming liar. If you look at what I said there, every word I said was true and factual and accurate.
All right, guys, I'm not going to get into the campaigning aspect of it, but the bottom line is this. And you know, I'm a bottom line kind of guy. Barack Obama has done historic amounts of damage to this country. His pièce de résistance would be putting another hard left justice on the Supreme Court. It cannot be allowed. Now, the Republican Party is well known for having no courage whatsoever in standing up to Barack Obama. So it'll be interesting. All the big guns have already said they're not going to allow him to, they're not going to okay anyone that he puts forward. But you know what? We've been betrayed before. Time will tell. Item from the Rebel. The Canadian military has been ordered by Justin Trudeau's Liberals to draft plans to house more than 6,000 Muslim migrants on a long-term basis at military bases, according to documents obtained exclusively by the Rebel. Included in the Department of National Defense budgets are hundreds of thousands of dollars set aside for, quote, religious support, including the purchase of Muslim Qurans, prayer mats, and foot-washing towels. The plan also calls for the construction of mosques or worship centers using taxpayers' dollars. The planning documents in English and French were released in response to a Rebel access to information request about religious expenditures by the Department of National Defense. But the detailed Quebec budget plans also shed light on the sheer scale of the Trudeau government's plans to set up refugee camp-style accommodations on 7 Canadian forest bases across Quebec and Ontario. The budget for Quebec alone totals more than $46 million for the first 6 months. Now, Robert Spencer, who runs the Jihad Watch website, notes the following based on that news item. Quote, "This will have the effect of creating 7 100% Muslim cities all over Canada. In those cities, will the Muslims in their gratitude forget all about Islam's doctrines of warfare against the subjugation of unbelievers? Of course they won't. But Canadian officials, like officials all over the West, do not recognize that those doctrines even exist, and so are not making any provisions for what might happen if Muslims in these new cities do start to misunderstand Islam on a large scale." Stop. Justin Trudeau is a liberal like his father, Pierre Trudeau. He's a liberal, and so he is throwing open the doors and allowing the enemy in. Now that's bad news for Canadians. To have thousands of Muslims shipped into their country and spaced in their own Muslim communities, that's bad news for Canada. It's bad news for us too, my friends, because that means we've got Muslim communities and thousands of Muslims right above us, just north of the United States. What is it about liberals that they not only want to commit suicide, but while they're at it, they're going to take the rest of us with them? What is the demented part of liberalism that wants to sink everybody at the same time? Let's take a break. More Real Truth on the far end. Don't go anywhere. All right, guys, all done. Please share this video, okay? Share it with everybody you know. Share it with people you don't know. I won't tell anybody. Bye-bye.